Ever walk into your kitchen, spotless, sparkling clean, not a crumb in sight, and suddenly, bam, there it is, that one, lone fruit fly,
Yeah.
buzzing around like it owns the place. Like, how did it even get in here?
It's remarkable, isn't it? Insects have this knack for showing up in the most unexpected places.
It's like they've got a sixth sense for finding the most extreme environments and saying, yep, I can make this hum.
Which is exactly what we're diving into today. We're talking about the kinds of places most creatures wouldn't dare to tread, let alone thrive in.
From scorching deserts to icy wastelands to, get this, the depths of the ocean. You'll leave this deep dive with enough wild insect facts to impress your friends and maybe, just maybe, a newfound appreciation for those creepy crawlies we usually try to avoid.
Because when it comes to adaptation and resilience, insects wrote the book, or should I say, spun the silk.
Okay, I see what you did there. So let's kick things off with a place that's about as forgiving as, well, a hot oven. The Sahara Desert. Endless sand, brutal sun. You'd think it would be a no-bug zone, right?
You'd think. But as they say, life finds a way. And one of the Sahara's most incredible inhabitants is the Sahara silver ant. And here's the kicker. They're active during the hottest part of the day.
Hold on, seriously. When everything else is seeking shade, these guys are out and about. What's their secret? Some kind of super ant sunscreen.
Well, for starters, they're incredibly fast. We're talking a meter per second, which at their size is like a human sprinting down the highway. And their long legs help too, keeping them off that scorching sand.
Smart move.
Yeah.
But I got to ask about the silver part of their name. Is that just for show, or is there something more to it?
It's their secret weapon, actually. You see, their silver sheen comes from these densely packed hairs with a special structure that actually reflects sunlight, like tiny mirrors. This keeps them about 10 degrees cooler than if they were just plain black or brown.
Wow. Talk about evolution working its magic. So they've got their own built-in desert camouflage and heat protection, all in one.
Precisely. And it's not just them either. Remember that longhorn beetle we talked about, the one hanging out near those volcanoes? Shiny, heat-reflecting hairs, too.
It's like nature has this playbook of ingenious solutions, and it just keeps reusing the best ones, even in completely different environments.
Exactly. It just goes to show that similar challenges often lead to similar solutions in nature. Pretty neat, right?
It really is. But as awe-inspiring as the Sahara is, I think it's time for us to switch gears, head in the complete opposite direction, from the frying pan into the freezer, so to speak. What about those icy corners of the world? Are there insects that can handle that kind of extreme?
Absolutely. Ice crawlers, for example, have carved out quite a niche for themselves in high-altitude caves and on glacier edges, places most creatures wouldn't last 5 minutes.
Ice crawlers. Okay, even their name sounds hardcore, so no tiny parkas, I'm guessing. How do they survive in that kind of cold?
Think of it more like internal antifreeze. They've adapted to a very specific, very cold temperature range, and their bodies produce these special sugars that act like, well, antifreeze, preventing their cells from freezing solid.
So they've basically hacked their own biology to handle the cold. That's incredible. But I gotta ask, if they're that well adapted to freezing temperatures, what happens if they get too warm?
It's ironic, really. While they can withstand temperatures that would freeze us solid, they're actually incredibly sensitive to heat. Holding one in your hand for too long could be fatal.
Wow, talk about a delicate balance. So we've got bugs built for extreme heat, bugs built for extreme cold. But what about something like, say, California's Mono Lake? That's a whole different kind of extreme, isn't it? Super salty, not much can live there. Except, well, you know where this is going, right? Insects.
You're catching on. Mono Lake is fascinating. More than twice as salty as the ocean, yet it still supports this surprisingly diverse ecosystem.
And the alkali fly is the star of the show, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, not only do they live around the lake, they lay their eggs in that water. Talk about a challenging childhood.
Right, and the larvae, they have these amazing adaptations to deal with all that salt, essentially these super efficient miniature kidneys to get rid of the excess. But it's the adults that really blow my mind.
Because they need to go back into that water. How do they even manage that without drowning?
Picture this. The alkali fly is covered in these hydrophobic hairs, and they've got this waxy coating. When they submerge, this traps a layer of air around their body like a tiny diving bell.
Wait, hold on. So they bring their own scuba gear. That's incredible. How long can they stay under like that?
Up to 15 minutes. Plenty of time to feed, lay their eggs, and then pop back up to the surface. It's actually quite comical to see this tiny fly suddenly breaching the water like a miniature submarine.
Okay, that's amazing. But you know, we can't talk about extreme insect habitats without diving into the big one, right? The ocean depths. Thousands of meters down, crushing pressure, total darkness. Are you telling me there are insects down there?
You bet there are. It's about as extreme as it gets, but yeah, even in those crushing depths, insects have carved out a niche. We're talking parasitic lice, hitching a ride on, get this, deep diving seals and walruses.
Talk about picking your right. I mean, thousands of meters down, clinging to a walrus. Those lice must be tougher than they look. But hold on, how do they even breathe down there? Don't insects need, air?
Well, remember those spiracles we talked about, those tiny breathing holes on their bodies, the deep sea lice? They've evolved these unique spiracles that can actually close completely.
Shutting out the ocean, that's one way to do it. But then, how do they get oxygen? Do they store it up or something?
That's the million-dollar question. Some scientists think they might hold their breath for an incredibly long time, maybe using those closable spiracles to trap air inside. Others are leaning towards the idea that it's more about keeping the water out, letting them survive the pressure without drowning. We're still unraveling that mystery.
It's like they've got their own secret scuba system, and we're just trying to crack the code. But speaking of mysteries, and we've covered how these insects survive in these crazy places, but what about the why? As in, what are they even eating in these extreme environments? It's not like there's a ton of takeout down in the deep sea, right?
Good point. Food chains in extreme environments are fascinating. Like, take the Sahara silver ant. They're scavengers, basically capitalizing on the misfortune of other creatures that weren't so lucky in the heat. Being fast and heat tolerant means they get first dibs on those, well, let's call them resources.
So they're like the desert's cleanup crew, but with a need for speed? What about those ice crawlers, though? What's on the menu in a frozen wasteland?
They're surprisingly adaptable eaters, actually. Omnivores. They'll munch on pollen, organic matter blown in by the wind, that sort of thing. Might even scavenge on other insects that, well, didn't make it through the winter.
Even in those icy landscapes, life finds a way to keep things interesting. Okay, but back to Mono Lake for a sec. It's super salty, sure, but is there anything for those alkali flies to eat in there?
Plenty. Mono Lake has brine shrimp, and both the alkali fly larvae and the adults, they feed on algae and bacteria that thrive in that salty water. It's a whole ecosystem, perfectly balanced, even with all that salt.
Wow, so a super salty lake that would basically pickle most things is like an all-you-can-eat buffet for some creatures. It's like a whole other world down there. But get back to the deep sea lice for a sec. I'm still stuck on what they could possibly be eating in the deepest parts of the ocean.
Well, remember, we're talking about parasites. And their lifestyle, while maybe not the most glamorous, is definitely efficient when it comes to food.
You're saying they've got free room and board right at the source.
Exactly. They feed on the blood and skin of their seal and walrus hosts. A pretty cozy, if slightly creepy, existence.
Egg, when in the deep sea, right?
Right.
But it just goes to show, life finds a way, even in the most unexpected places. It's pretty impressive, even humbling, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And they're not just surviving, they're thriving. And playing a vital role in their ecosystems, it really makes you appreciate the sheer diversity and resilience of life on Earth.
It really does. We started off talking about finding bugs in unexpected places, like that fruit fly in a spotless kitchen. But this goes way beyond that. These extreme insects, they've got these incredible adaptations like those silver hairs, the air bubbles, the closable spiracles. But what I find really fascinating is what it all means in the bigger picture.
You're thinking about climate change, habitat loss, all those challenges facing the natural world.
It's like we were saying, those Sahara silver ants sprinting across that scorching sand. They're like tiny, heat-resistant Olympians.
And now here we are pondering the deeper meaning of it all.
Exactly. It's not just about how they survive those brutal temperatures, but what their incredible resilience could teach us, especially as we face our own challenges in a changing world.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? We often dismiss insects as simple creatures, pests even, but they've been around for millions of years, adapting to conditions that would wipe out most other life forms. There's a lot we can learn from that kind of resilience, that ability to thrive in the face of adversity.
It's like they're holding up a mirror, showing us the power of adaptation, the potential that lies in embracing change and finding creative solutions. I mean, if the alkali fly can thrive in a lake saltier than the ocean, imagine the possibilities for us to adapt to a changing climate, to find ways to conserve water, to innovate and overcome challenges that seem insurmountable.
And it's not just about finding ways to cope, to barely scrape by. Think about those deep-sea lice, clinging to their walrus hosts, thousands of meters below the surface. They don't just survive the crushing pressure, the total darkness, the extreme cold. They actually seem to be thriving down there. What if we could unlock that kind of resilience, not just for survival, but for actual progress, for pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible?
It really makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden in the insect world. What other adaptations and solutions to seemingly impossible problems are just waiting to be discovered.
That's the beauty of science and exploration, isn't it? Every time we delve into these extreme environments, every time we study these incredible creatures, we uncover new possibilities, new ways of thinking, new paths forward.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of extreme insects, let's make a pact to remember that the next time we encounter an insect, we're not just looking at a bug. We're looking at millions of years of evolution, millions of years of problem solving, millions of years of resilience and action.
And who knows? We might even find inspiration in those tiny, adaptable creatures. Inspiration to face our own challenges with a little more grit, a little more creativity, and maybe even a little bit of that insect ingenuity.
Beautifully said. And on that note, this is The Deep Dive, signing off. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep an eye out for those extraordinary insects hiding in plain sight. You never know what they might teach you.